Hey everybody, welcome to another great episode of the show presented by LTATM. Let's talk about the madness. LTATM.net is the website you go to for everything that I do. If you like to be involved in anything that I'm involved in, that's a really convoluted way to say that, then you go to LTATM.net. All kinds of good stuff there. How you doing? We're keeping pretty regular, aren't we? This is episode 22, and it's a week after 21, which was a week after episode 20. We're actually staying pretty quick with all this, and I don't think I'm going to stick to this schedule permanently. I think the best I'm going to do is bi-weekly, because it doesn't give me a lot of time to plan out what to talk about. If I go too quick, I have to wait and build up like topics and things and see what's going on in the world, which I've mentioned before. It's quality over quantity. But, you know, I've got some momentum now, so I figured I would keep on going. What is going on in the world today? The weather in Ohio is pretty stable. It rained yesterday, but it was warm and kind of nice today. My daughter went with her mom to go swimming today, and they stayed out in the pools for quite a while. Probably for 6-7 hours. More adventurous than I am. I don't really swim. I can swim. I just don't. I'm not a big fan of swimming in general. I'm just not a big fan. That's not bad. So, how are you folks doing? It hasn't been that long since the last time we talked, so I'm sure not a whole lot has happened. Some big things have happened in the world, and I'm going to talk about some of them. I am going to get into kind of a personal topic also. I'm going to talk about some events in my life while keeping it a bit vague, because I don't want to put anybody's name out there on blast and put anybody's personal business out there. But it's something that I've had a lot of time to think about and ruminate over for a couple of years, to be honest. Like, it's been a couple of years that this was an issue. It's weird to think that it lasted that long. But I'm going to bring that up later. I know everybody's going to be really intrigued now what that is, but we'll get to it. And let me start off. I watched, as I'm recording this, it's Tuesday. The episode is going to go live Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. 8 Pacific. For reasons. My own petty reasons. And, so since yesterday was Monday, I didn't get a chance to watch Monday Night Raw, the WWE wrestling show. Okay? I know I talk about that every so often on the channel here. On the show, rather, not just the channel, the show. But I watched it today rather than last night, because I didn't have as much time last night, and I wanted to make sure I got a proper opportunity to digest everything. And you can watch it on Netflix now. You can watch it on Netflix or on Peacock. But it's more it's more on track. Like, it's more on schedule on Netflix. It's behind a little bit on Peacock for some reason. And I want to say, if anybody is following WWE stuff right now, if you're not, then you can tune out for a few minutes while I geek out about it, you know, get into some nerd stuff. But if you're into it, tell me, try and tell me that Braun Breaker is not the future of the sports entertainment as we know and love it. Try and tell me he's not. He's a superstar. He's I don't get into the whole hero worship thing, so it's not that. It's just he's really talented. He's got great microphone skills, because in order to be a good wrestler in that kind of a business, you have to be able to talk and be able to threaten people and put people over and be like, "Oh yeah, I'm the best there is," whatever, that kind of thing. He's got the skills. Oh, he reminds me so much of his uncle. His father is Rick Steiner. His uncle is Scott Steiner. And his father and his uncle were a tag team back in the day called the Steiner Brothers when they first started. And then they both split to do their own thing, and Scott Steiner outlasted Rick Steiner as far as being in the business regularly and being a character. And Scott was one of my favorites. He was just unhinged. He would just say the most random things to people. And he had the strength and the moves to back him up, and he was just this tough, crazy guy. Oh, it's great to watch. It's great to watch old Scott Steiner matches. Trust me, if you're a wrestling fan, you haven't seen it, by all means, you need to. And if you are, and you have seen them, and you know Scott Steiner. And Braun is getting closer and closer in how he does his delivery to being like Scott Steiner. And it's so great to see. The promo that he did on last night's episode of Raw was fantastic. And then the match he had was good. He backed it up. He backed up his words. He's the future. He's the future of the business right now. And I've been talking about this with a few people. Him and Jacob Fatu are the two main people that look moving forward are going to take they're going to take the titles, they're going to take everything from everybody. They're the guys right now. They're on opposite shows. Braun's on Raw, and Jacob Fatu is on SmackDown. Those are the two branded shows that they have for WWE. I can't watch SmackDown because it's on USA Network, and I don't have a way to watch that on any of the apps that I have, because it requires paying for yet another app that I don't want to pay for. There's too many streaming apps, I don't want to pay for them. Have I complained about this before, about there being too many streaming services and them not consolidating a lot of stuff and making deals to put everything in one place? Because, my goodness. You've got Netflix, Peacock, Max, which is going to go back to being HBO Max because of business. You've got Discovery Plus, you've got Paramount Plus, you've got Disney Plus, you've got Tubi, you've got so many things. I don't even have a fraction of all the things out. You got the Apple TV, you got it's complicated. It's complicated. And I don't have in order to save costs, I don't have regular cable anymore. I have cable for my internet, so I have broadband internet. But I don't have cable TV because it was just too expensive and it was just not worth having. I didn't use it enough because I have the other streaming things. So I don't get to watch SmackDown. But I will watch highlights on YouTube of things that Jacob Fatu does, because he's very entertaining. He's great. He's fantastic. He's very talented. He's a bigger dude, and he can do things that I clearly would never be able to do in my lifetime. So, yeah, Braun Breaker. I'm saying it now. He's the future. He's going to be a future heavyweight champion. But let's get into the big news. Let's get into the big news. The big news that people are fired up about. And I don't get into politics too much. on the channel, remember, because um, because I know there's so many people with strong opinions about everything. And I, as much as I might have certain opinions on stuff, I don't want to go out of my way to antagonize people for no reason. And I feel like these days, that's what politics does. It causes arguments whether you want them to or not, and everybody has an opinion. And if you align yourself with any aspect of it, then you've aligned yourself with certain people, and that instantly makes you persona non grata among other groups of people. And I'm very much independent, I'll say that. I don't identify, and I hate... Here's another thing about language. I know I'm going off on a lot of tangents all of a sudden, but hear me out. I hate the term I identify with, because you're putting a label on yourself, and I despise labeling myself. I'm just a guy. I do things. I like things. I enjoy things. I follow things. I don't have a title. I'm not a Gen Z, as much as they might say. I'm not a millennial. I'm not a whatever. I'm not a Republican, a Democrat, a conservative, a liberal. I don't identify, and I hate having to say that. I hate labels. I don't call myself any of these things. I'm just a person. I'm just a guy. Right? And even that's a label these days, like identifying as a certain gender or sexuality, and you can't get away from it, and it drives me nuts, because people make this their whole lives. People choose their identities based on buzzwords and titles and political descriptors and things, and I can't stand it. It's all so complicated, and it drives me nuts. And I'm just a person. You know what I mean? I hope you can kind of sympathize a little bit with what I'm saying. If I had to choose, I would say I'm an independent who leans a little bit conservative, because I grew up, again, out in the middle of farm country. There's a lot of ideas that are really progressive that I'm kind of leery of, but I don't hate. I'm not angry about. I'm not going to go protest against. They're different to me. And I don't quite understand some of it, and it makes me uncomfortable. And I say that not because I want to say I'm some kind of a bigot and I hate these things. I don't understand all of it, and I try to stay away from it just because I don't get it, and I don't want to irritate people unnecessarily. I'm just trying to do my thing over here. I'm not trying to make people mad on purpose. Well, maybe one person. One person in my life deserves to be mad all the time. And you probably know who that is. I've mentioned that person before. I have one enemy. I have only one enemy that I devote any time towards in this life. And everything else I don't worry about, because what's the point? I'm just trying to do my thing. So, anyway, the big political thing that's going on right now is, and I'm not calling it this because I believe it's this or I believe it isn't. I'm just going to call it what they called it, what the political establishment has called it. They have called it the Big Beautiful Bill. And instantly, I already know there's people out there like, it's not big or beautiful, it's horrible. And then other people are like, yes, it's fantastic, we love it. It's an interesting construct, is what it is. there's so much about it that is uncertain to me from both sides of the political fence. There's a lot in it, and some of it is going to directly affect me, and some of it's not, and some of it's hard to say whether it's going to or not, and I can't judge for other people how it's going to affect people. I know that one of the big arguments against it is, if you care about people, then you won't want this bill, and it does this and it does that, and I'm gonna be real honest with you. I don't devote my time every day thinking about other people. Okay? I know that sounds a certain way, and people are going to say you're selfish, you're a jerk, you're self-centered. When I get up in the morning, I'm focused on 3 people. Okay. I'm focused on my daughter, her mother, and me. Because that's my immediate concern. I have to make sure that the 3 of us have all of our needs met, that we're taken care of, that we're healthy. You know, I don't wake up and instantly wonder, oh, I wonder what's going on in the Middle East. I should go online and find out. I don't look up the latest happenings in Israel and Palestine. I don't look up the latest whatever happened in Iran. I don't check what's going on in the LGBTQ community. I don't look at all these things because these things aren't part of my day-to-day life. And I know people are going to be upset and they're going to think that I'm just being ignorant, or that, well, if you don't pay attention, then you're clearly on the side of the oppressor, which I think is a bullshit argument. Okay? I can't fight for something that has no bearing on me as a person. Really think about that for a second, okay? I'm not trying to be deliberately offensive or to make people angry. Think about it. I have things to deal with day to day, and so do you. If you are fortunate enough to not have responsibilities to the point where you can devote much of your daily life to causes and to altruistic things, by all means, that's great for you. But I don't. And most people don't. Most people do not have the capability or the time. And you can say, oh, that's a cop-out. If you're not making time, then you don't care. And it's like, well, I guess I don't care. I guess I'm too busy making sure that my daughter is fed, that my daughter is getting the education she needs, that my daughter's mother has a good meal when she comes home from work, that she doesn't have to do anything around the house after she's been working for 12 hours a day, because I've taken care of it. I've cleaned, I've cooked, I've done whatever. You know, I have immediate things to deal with. I don't have any room in my day to worry about Palestine or to worry about Israel. Right? I don't. And people are going to be mad, and I get it. But I hope you see my point of view. I hope you can kind of see where I'm coming from with that. So, let's talk about the big beautiful bill, quote unquote. It has a lot of things that people say about it. There's an extension of the tax cuts that went through in 2017 during the first Trump administration, which I don't think had any benefit or harm to anybody at my level. I don't think taxes got cut at my level. The issue here is that because if you cut taxes, then the government is not going to be getting as much money, so that means you're increasing the government's deficit. And I know that the answer to that that's left out of discussions about the bill is that supposedly the various tariffs and things are supposed to make up the shortfall in that money, but I don't know. It's all kind of up in the air right now. There's a lot of assumptions about this. There's cuts to health care and food programs. I'm not... because of the money that we make, we're not rich. I'm going to say that. We are not rich. We're probably we're lower middle class. Okay? Is where we are. My family and I. And because of that, we don't qualify for things like Medicaid. We don't qualify for any of the Obamacare, quote unquote. I think that's a stupid name and I hate it, but the Affordable Care Act. We don't qualify for a lot of the programs from that healthcare.gov website. I looked on there a couple of years back to try to see if we could get family insurance from the website, and the insurance was more than we could afford. We didn't qualify for any assistance. We would have to pay just as much as we would pay for any sort of insurance offered by a job. So it's pointless to me. So I don't know. I don't know really how this affects people right off the bat, because I don't know how much realistically, how many people actually are on these programs. It says that the lowest income households will be left worse off because of cuts to Medicare and SNAP, which is the food stamps program. But it doesn't say how. It does say that tips and overtime wages, to a point, won't be taxed, which I think is kind of a big deal. You have to be within a bracket for your tips not to be taxed, which is kind of it's kind of BS. Because in the bracket that we're at, it wouldn't matter. But we're not getting tipped anyway, so who cares? But overtime pay, maybe. And that's interesting, because that could benefit us. And maybe it will, maybe it won't. I don't know. The thing about all this is you look at these changes, and this president right now, which right now we've got President Trump, okay? I know people have said, oh, he's talking about a third term, he's going to try to change the law. He's not going to get a third term. It's not going to happen. The law is clear that presidents can only have 2 terms. Congress is not going to give him, regardless of which party is in charge, they are not going to change the law to give him a third term. It's not going to happen. So please stop worrying about it. Okay, he can, regardless of what anybody says, it's not going to happen. So when his term is over, if the next person that comes in is from the opposite party, they're instantly going to undo all of these things from this bill. Or at least some of them. I don't know. Maybe they won't care, or maybe they'll make it a point to do so. I don't know. But it's difficult to worry about things in a short term because 4 years may seem like a long time, but it's really not. It's not that long. And that's where I'm at with this. I'm in a constant state of wait and see because I know that things are temporary. And things will always change. The Affordable Care Act screwed my family royally because since we didn't qualify for any of its programs or any of the good rates that you can get on the open marketplace there, then the other insurance we could get through the various jobs we had went up to compensate. And we couldn't afford it. And I don't know if we even have insurance right now. I don't think we do because we can't afford taking that out of our paychecks. Like, it's just... And that was an Obama thing. It made a huge difference to me and my family. Will the stuff in the big beautiful bill make things better or worse for us? I don't know. I've stopped trying to decode this kind of thing because it just... Getting angry about it serves no purpose. Unless you have millions of people who agree with you on the exact same points and are able to somehow get systems changed by voting in the right people or causing petitions or things like that in order to put new bills on the ballots. Unless you have that kind of sway, then it doesn't matter. My voice is essentially meaningless in the long run. And that's why I don't usually sound off on this kind of thing, because what difference is it going to make? I have to have millions of people who think the exact same way I do, and I can't guarantee that. I have no idea. I don't interact with people that often on that level. And even if millions of people, for example, were aligned with me on that single issue, that big of a group may also be aligned on other things that I'm not into. You get what I mean? Like, I can't tie myself to such a large group of people unless every single thing that they are into are things that I'm into, and that's realistically impossible. I am not going to subvert my values. I am not going to compromise what I feel is right and wrong in any fashion. I'm just not going to do it. And that puts me at a disadvantage, I'm sure. It would make me a very terrible politician. Because you have to make concessions to people, you have to make promises to people, and you have to break those promises when you have to. And I'm not going to do that. I'm absolutely not going to do that kind of behavior. So, you won't see me get directly involved in national politics, where my name is out there in the press, having opinions on things. So that's all I've got to say about the... Other than, it's also got a ton of money going towards national defense. And you know what? I don't think we would need to put as much money towards the defense budget if we weren't sticking our faces into other countries messing with their business. I've said this before. If we focused on here and getting along with people around us, not necessarily like bending over backwards and giving everybody what they want, but just, being a friendly, just, what, we're dedicated to keeping ourselves as a country safe, and we're not going to go out of our way to mess with other people's business, but we are going to be, open to talking with trade and various other things with people. I think that would go a long way instead of us trying to be the world police. Because I don't like the fact that we're the world police. We're the top of the heap in NATO, in the United Nations, and all these places just because we're a fully developed country and all those other things. And just because you are the top dog, and I'm not saying we are for sure, I'm just saying as an example, just because you're the top dog doesn't mean you need to go and tell everybody else how to do their thing. Right? All you have to do is to protect your interests and make sure that nobody's messing with you. And we've gotten away from that. I'm not advocating isolationism. I'm advocating focusing on ourselves in a way that benefits our citizens personally. People say the United States is the greatest country on earth. Well, let's actually make it that way. Let's focus on doing that instead of trying to spread democracy and spread freedom and spread whatever to the rest of the world. Let the rest of the world do what they want. If they want to bomb each other into oblivion in the middle of the sands, whatever, let them do that. Let them work it out. It's not our problem. It's got nothing to do with us. We've got flooding in Texas. We've got water shortages in California. We've got wildfires, all kinds of places. We've got things to deal with here. We have things to do here. Let's work on here before we try to fix what's going on in the rest of the world. And there are a lot of terrible things going on in the world. You've got... Did anybody ever find those people kidnapped by Boko Haram? Did anybody ever find them? Did anybody ever rescue them? I don't know. It was a big story for a few months, and then it wasn't a few years ago, and we have no idea. The school kids, there was kids from a school had been kidnapped by Boko Haram in someplace in Africa, and that story never resolved. We have no idea. Do you know? Because I don't, and I've looked. So let's stop worrying about that kind of stuff. I don't mean to be callous. I don't mean to be, antisocial, I suppose. But we got to focus on what's going on here. We got problems here. Let's fix them. So let's go to the next topic. This is kind of a serious show, I guess. I've got a lot of serious things to say. This is where things are going to get a little personal. And I'm not going to name names, and I'm not going to name situations, because again, I'm not putting people on the spot, and I'm not trying to make a big deal out of certain things. I've been really introspective about this lately. Recently, a friend of mine and I reconnected on some issues that we'd had. And again, I'm not going to get into the specifics or even say who it was, because that's not your business. I mean, I love you folks. You folks are awesome. I do. But some things are just not, their personal business. So why are you talking about it, Spider? Because I think there's some good examples to learn from the situation. Okay. Everything's a learning experience. And I reconnected with a friend of mine. We had been kind of estranged for a few years, to be perfectly honest, because of certain decisions that we both made. And I'm not trying to point fingers or cast blame. I'm going to say there was a situation that happened with my friend, and they went a certain direction with it, and I didn't agree with that direction. I didn't agree with it. This is a friend of mine that I've known for over a decade. And I don't make friends easily anymore. That's not a poor me, woe is me kind of thing, because I'm not worried about it. That's just how I am. I'm not looking to make a bunch of new friends. It's okay. It's not a big deal. I'm not a super social person. I can exist with a very small circle of people and be perfectly fine. Okay? But we've known each other a long time. We've always had each other's back. And they got themselves involved in a situation that I could not really follow with. I couldn't support on a certain level. And while I wanted to support them as a person, it was difficult for me to support what was going on. And because of that, we drifted apart. And we drifted to the point where we actually both started to kind of resent each other. We didn't want to talk to each other. We didn't want to deal with each other, but we had to, because on a professional level we had a thing going, and we had to deal with this professional business that we had going on, and it would just become very terse, very short, very... It was uncomfortable on both sides for various reasons, and we're both at fault. I can say all I want about, well, if they didn't do this, then I wouldn't have reacted like this. Well, sure, but I didn't have to react that way, right? There was a catalyst to the situation, but that doesn't mean I had to act the way that I did, which in turn caused the other person to act the way that they did. And it continued that way in a feedback loop of just resentment and kind of not disrespect, but close. And I know I'm keeping this super, super vague, but here's the point that I'd like to make. The point is that we stopped communicating. We stopped talking about things. We stopped telling each other how we felt about the situation because we made assumptions. We made assumptions about what the other person was going to say, what they were going to feel like, how they were going to react, and we didn't know, but we assumed. And it led to a rift. It led to almost a complete breakdown of the friendship. And I spent a lot of days, I'll admit it, and I told the person this, I spent a lot of days resentful. I spent a lot of days just in my mind, just like, how could they be like this? How could they act like this? Why do I even bother? You know, it got bad. It got real bad. And we recently got together in person and we talked it over, and I said, hey, this is what was going on with me. And they told me what was going on with them. And we got down to the bitter truth of everything, and it could have been avoided if we'd have just communicated on it. And sometimes if you've got a problem with somebody and you're worried how they're going to react, it doesn't matter. That might sound callous again, but it doesn't matter. If there's something that needs to be said, you say it. And if they have something to say, they'll say it. And if you really still want to be friends, or even if it's a romantic relationship or whatever, it's the same kind of example applies, then you'll listen to what the other person has to say, and you'll think, okay, all right, well, let's see, why do I feel this way, why do you feel that way, let's see if we can come to an agreement on this, let's see if we can meet in the middle. rather than just sitting back and assuming, oh, well, they're not going to. Because my assumption was that they were going to think that I wasn't supportive, which, I kind of wasn't, but I wasn't. It wasn't that I wasn't supportive of them, I wasn't supportive of the situation they had themselves in. But my assumption was that they would see it as I didn't respect them. And so I didn't say anything, because I thought that was the best course of action. I didn't want them to feel like that. But again, I was assuming how they were going to feel. And they picked up on that, and they assumed that I felt a certain way. And it just, again, it made things worse. If you confront a person and tell them, hey, you know what, this is how I feel, and then they're angry and upset and they cut you off, okay, well, at least you got you got yourself out there. You told them how you felt. You got your conscience cleared. But they might not do that. They might be like, all right, I see what you mean, but here's my problem. And then you can listen. And then you can decide whether they're talking bullshit or whether they're talking something that makes sense to you, and you can be like, okay, well, I'm clearly in the wrong on some things too. Because that's what it was. And again, I know I'm keeping it real vague, but it's a personal thing, and I don't want to compromise anything that's going on. I'm not going to put things out there that are going to get people upset with other people, or that are going to get people upset with me or the other person involved in the situation, because I don't think it's fair for third parties to make their opinions when they weren't involved. Right? I respect all you people for listening. I do. But you're not part of the situation, so you don't need to know the details. I don't know. This is an episode that if I'm going to offend anybody and run people off, this is probably going to be it. And I don't mean to. I'm not trying to be a jerk about this. I'm not trying to just be like, well, it's none of your business. Or I wouldn't be talking about it if I didn't think you deserved to listen to it. Right? I'm trusting you with some real personal stuff here. I'm trusting you folks with some things that really had to get off my chest. And I've already talked about it with the person, so it's not like I need to say it to anybody else. I just thought, if you're in a similar situation, say what you mean. Say what's on your mind. Tell the other person what you're feeling. If they're really a person that's your friend or that you're in a relationship with or whatever, they will at least have respect to the fact that you spoke up for yourself and that you have an issue. Whether they agree with you or not, that's an entirely different thing, and maybe you'll work it out with them, or maybe they won't. But if they are your friend, if they are somebody who respects you, then they will continue to respect you for saying that. And if they don't respect you for saying that, then maybe you need to reevaluate that friendship, that romantic relationship, that whatever it is, business relationship even. You know, it's just how things go. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I just wanted to make that point, to say that and get that out there. And the last thing we're going to talk about tonight, we have about 15 minutes left, give or take, for the normal running of the show. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about something that most people might see as a joke. Let's talk about the Cleveland Browns. And the reason I talk about them is because they are, for whatever reason, they're my sports team. I don't follow basketball. I don't follow baseball anymore. I used to. I followed baseball when the Guardians were still the Indians, and now I don't because it's not really a big deal for me. I've never been a big fan of any basketball teams. I don't follow hockey so much. I barely follow football because I've lived in Ohio for most of my adult life. And I've lived close to Cleveland. Relatively speaking, not retro, whatever that was. Relatively speaking, I've lived close to Cleveland. They're just a little bit north of here. So my team is, again, for better or for worse, the Cleveland Browns. And I get so frustrated. I'm not one of those super fans that paints their face or that goes like, oh, the Browns need to do this. Oh, they lost everything. I'm so mad. I don't argue with people about it. I know the team is doing pretty bad. And if you're a Browns fan and you're going to come at me and say, well, they've got all these great players. Okay, you're valid in talking about that. But you need to remember, don't try to blow smoke at me, that the Browns have not gone to the Super Bowl in decades. Okay? They've sometimes, very sometimes, gone to the playoffs, and that's not very often. And I've wanted to be... I'm a supportive person, but I don't watch every game. I don't go to the games because it's a bit of a drive to Cleveland and I don't have the money for tickets all the time. And the reason I'm bringing them up is because they're talking about the owner of the team is talking about building a new stadium that's not in Cleveland proper. It's in Brook Park, which is a suburb of Cleveland, somewhere in the outskirts. They have a perfectly good stadium right there on the lake. And I've been there for different things. I went up there for SummerSlam, for WWE, last year. And while there were some logistical problems, it's a good location being right there on the lake. It's an open stadium. They want to make a domed stadium in Brook Park to account for the weather and things like that, so that you don't have to play in the snow. And as much as I can get that, this is like the third or fourth stadium they've built for Cleveland in my lifetime. It's, in my opinion, a gigantic waste of money. Because if you move the team there, what are you going to use the other stadium for? You're going to use it just for events, which is fine. But who's going to go to that part of Cleveland, the diehard people, just to see events there? Who's going to go to Brook Park, to the new stadium, the Dome, to see events? They're talking about, they wanted to try to use taxpayer money from the state of Ohio, and that got shot down. Because there's a rule in place that says you can't move the team anywhere, because when the Baltimore Ravens used to be the original Cleveland Browns, and the owner at the time moved the Ravens to Baltimore, Maryland. So it sold out the team. And so the state put a rule into place. I don't know if it's a law per se, but it's a rule that says that you can't move a professional sports team out of state or out of the area. I don't remember the specifics. I could be getting it wrong, so don't hold me to that. But they tried to evoke that for this move to Brook Park, even though technically it's part of the greater Cleveland area. But the short story is that the state isn't wanting to help pay for the stadium because they don't want taxpayer money. So now the idea is potentially to use unclaimed funds which is a slush fund of a bunch of money that's just floating around from lawsuits or from overtaxed. If you've been overtaxed and they owe you money and you never claimed it, because maybe you don't know, or if there was a lawsuit somewhere in the state and you're owed money and you don't know, or different things. There's unclaimed funds that you can go to a website, part of the Ohio state government. You can go to the website and you can claim funds. I've got $20. I've got $20 from an insurance claim from years ago from an accident I got into. It was not my fault. I was owed apparently $20 from my insurance at the time. So I've got unclaimed funds that I've got in a check that I need to cash. So it's little stuff like that in the state. But they want to use all that kind of stuff that nobody has actually claimed to help pay for the stadium, which I think is kind of disingenuous. I think it's just kind of sneaky. It's like, oh, well, people don't know that they're owed this money, so let's use it for something. Yeah, it might just be sitting there forever because people don't know what's there, but you could make a better effort to inform people that, hey, here's your money. Because people need it, right? I could use every dollar I can get. But my issue is you're spending a ton of money. It's like $600 million for this new stadium, is what the quote was. And the team has not had a winning season in 2 decades. This is a team who went 0-16 one year. They lost every single game, 16 games in a season. And because of that, a group of people put on a parade through Cleveland. They organized a parade for the team having a perfect record. It was a perfect losing record, so that it was like a ridiculous thing to do, but they did it because they were that passionate about it. We're talking about a team that just... people get traded off the team every season. You never have the same team twice, it seems like, except for some basic people there who are always there, who are just there to get a paycheck and to play on the field. They never have the same quarterback more than a couple of seasons, and it drives me crazy. You can't develop a team that way. It feels more and more like pro wrestling, and the Browns are just the jobbers. They're the people who are just there just to help other teams win. And if you're going to be looking at spending so much money for a stadium, why don't you look at spending all that money on building the team so that the team wins? I'm not saying that they're going to win the Super Bowl every year, that they're even going to go every year, but at least try to work on getting them so that they can go to the playoffs every year. Come on now. It's so frustrating. I can only imagine what it's like being a diehard super fan, because I'm not. I'm just a casual fan. I'm just a casual. I can't imagine what it's like being somebody who's totally invested, who has like lifetime tickets, because there are people who have season tickets who go every year and they're for every single game, and I can't imagine trying to keep your enthusiasm through all of that. It would drive me crazy. So that's what I think. This episode has been a lot of me just like venting on all sorts of things, I think. I don't know. I don't know if this is going to be a good episode or not, but I made it anyway, and I stand by it, because I do. We're getting to the last couple of minutes. I just want everybody to make sure that you can subscribe to the various things that I do. If you're on YouTube, go to Spider Does Things. That's the main channel. I'm going to try to get these podcast episodes caught up there as well. Mostly I've got the game videos there, but it's growing a little more every day, and I appreciate everybody who's following me there. If you want to follow me on Twitch, you go to twitch.tv/DMGRGN. That's how you can watch me gaming live nightly, generally 11 p.m.-ish Eastern Standard Time, give or take. And don't forget to go to the website. Go to ltatm.net. Let's talk about the madness. And check out all the great content we've got there. All of the podcast stuff streams there. All of the videos stream there. We've got a lot of good affiliates there. A lot of people who sponsor the website that are fantastic. They're great people. And we have a lot of things going on. I appreciate all of your attention in that. And that's all. I guess that's all I have. So, hope you enjoyed everything you heard tonight. And if you've got some questions or comments, please leave me a comment. You can leave comments on Spotify. I don't know if you can here on Spreaker, but you can on Spotify. You can leave me a comment. Tell me what your thoughts are with this episode. Give me a rating. It's a 5-star rating, 1 to 5 stars on Spotify. Please give me a review. I'd appreciate it if you would give me 4 or 5 stars. It'd be awesome. But you know what? Be honest. If you think it sucks, then tell me it sucks. It's okay. It's not going to hurt my feelings. I'm going to be grouchy at you for messing up my perfect score, but I'm not going to, you be honest, however you feel about it. Or you can send me an email at official.ltatm@gmail.com. official.ltatm@gmail.com. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I really would. I don't get enough emails from fans or from haters. Either way, I don't get enough emails from either one of you, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. And maybe I'll read them on the air, what your thoughts are. I can keep it anonymous if you want. I don't have to use your name. Even if you're a hater, I'm not going to call you out and be like, well, Bill J from New Jersey said the show sucked hardcore. I'm not going to say that. I'm just saying, hey, this guy from New Jersey, he hates the show. Anyway. All right, that's it. That's all I got for you. Have a good night. I'll see you next time.